Hi everyone, I have used a Google Slides presentation for my M5.1 Study and Report 5. Our focus today is going to be a journal written by Dr. O'Connor and two other authors that I have credited in my citations. The journal is entitled Scaffolding Complex Learning, Integrating 21st Century Thinking, Emerging Technologies, and Dynamic Design and Assessment to Expand Learning and Communication Opportunities. So this journal focuses around community of practice or inquiry, such as a situated cognitive environment. And there are several components that build up a community of this type. That is content perspective, learning objects and emerging technologies, the learners within that community, and how to assess those learners. So to shift this framework to something more specific for me, last year I was a fifth grade math teacher. And so my math class was solely online based due to the pandemic. So my report today is going to be following that framework. So to start with content perspective, the framework that Dr. O'Connor suggests states that content should be divided into systematic components. So we follow the New York State Next Generation Learning Standards, and those drive our instruction. Math curriculums take those standards and then they create modules and lessons based upon them to assess mastery at the end of a grade level. And the way that they're organized in these modules and lessons is very specific. It has prerequisite skills, easier skills that will eventually end up becoming more advanced as the year progresses and students gain more skills. My class followed an I do, we do, you do framework. So I had a gradual release of responsibility where at the beginning of the class, I was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And then as we moved on, students were working alongside with me, working together, and then working alone. And this was really great to scaffold instruction and to foster collaborative and independent learning. So the learners within my community were fifth grade students, and they were connecting with the content and other students as the framework suggests. There was a centralized meeting spot, Microsoft Teams, similar to how we use Marion Island in our course. And then we had a submission spot for our work being Seesaw and ours being Moodle. We established a classroom culture amongst ourselves, knowing when to use our microphones, the chat box, muting on and off, turning your cameras on. And we created heterogeneous learning groups amongst our classroom culture. That way students were connected with the content and other students at varying levels of ability. I wanted to keep in mind the prior knowledge that these students had, so being aware of how they contribute to the environments and their backgrounds. Learning objects and emerging technologies. So the framework that Dr. O'Connor's article suggests that web-based interactions and discussions are a really key component in a situated cognitive environment. And so I mirrored that using polls for questions to make sure that students were engaged and as a form of formative assessment. Glow and grows, having students share something that went really well for them during a class and something that they could grow upon in a later lesson. And higher order questioning using Bloom's taxonomy to really have an inquiry-based discussion over certain mathematic concepts. So these interactions and discussions were all done on Microsoft Teams, and it kept the conversation moving. I did use UDL principles in my practice, so multiple means of engagement, representation, and expression. And the engagement came from several different exercises. We would do something as simple as a quick fluency game, or it would be a game that the students produced themselves about vocabulary words. Multiple means of representation. I wouldn't just show my slides in one specific way. There would sometimes be videos or picture aids, graphs. And as far as showing multiple means of expressions, there's more than one strategy to solve a problem. So I wanted to have them express how much they knew in a way that felt comfortable and familiar to them. The framework that Dr. O'Connor suggests incorporates a lot of simulations, and being a little bit limited into the amount of technology we had, the management, because the students were only in 5th grade. It was a little bit difficult to have simulations that were as immersive as Mary on Island. So the teaching model I used offered an interactive environment with nuances of complexity. So sometimes I would let students share their screen and teach a mini lesson within my lesson. For assessment, I had a lot of elements of self-evaluation, so students could decide on their level of comfortability when it came to a particular lesson. So they would, sit there and say to themselves, do I feel like I have mastered this and I'm ready to move on? I need a challenge. Am I comfortable where I'm at? Or do I need some assistance from my teacher or my peers? And so this self-evaluation would drive what assessment they completed, which really differentiated my instruction and gave students choices within how they were assessed. There was clear grading criteria. I know that the framework that we've read about suggests that we should have very clear templates that students follow when it comes to how they're being assessed, such as rubrics, and that was established within the classroom culture. There was integration of peer review. So I had students share their completed work or artifact to each other, and they would give each other immediate and relevant feedback to better their practice. And I could do this through just breakout rooms, having students actually share out with the whole class if they didn't mind being a little vulnerable. And this was great so students can gain multiple perspectives. So I always like to conclude with a toolbox addition. A toolbox is an imaginary concept where it's kind of like an analogy for my brain. So it's things that I've added to my toolbox after completing this report. So according to the framework, design, we should be designing and implementing learning experiences that support higher order thinking and collaboration. We should provide multiple opportunities to apply learning within the community. So making sure that what we are asking students to complete is relevant to real world experiences, and overall facilitating a community of practice that is positive and reliant on multiple perspectives. So the community or the situated cognitive environment wouldn't really exist or be as powerful without the learners that are within it to help that environment grow and advance in whatever area they are focused on. And then there are my citations. I look forward to seeing everybody's video as well.